Alright everybody, I am in the big box and I'm buying the lumber for the raised beds that our garden's going to be in. So I've got 12 2x6s rough cut. I don't like finished lumber, it gets warped and weird. So rough cut seems to be pretty nice. And 2 4x4s. I'm not going to say which store I'm at, but I'm sure some of the coloring will give it away. And this store is wonderful because they will cut 4x4s, whereas the other blue colored store refuses to, which means the dog fence wood that I bought I'm going to have to rebuy here, which I'm more than happy to. I'd rather give the business to the people who are willing to work for me. But I'll let you know how the project goes as I work through it. Matter of fact, here's their restrictions, just so that you know what you're looking at when you come to the store, whose name I will not mention for copyright reasons, but I'm sure that you've figured it out by now. They don't cut anything under 12 inches. They don't cut lattice. And that's probably because of all the staples. I'm not quite sure what they mean by rip cuts, but obviously this table can't do that anyway, because I believe a rip cut is a rough cut that just kind of follows the line. So, but there's your restrictions. Okay, I have moved all the wood into the backyard. I got 14 bags of the EcoScraps compost mix. Again, I really like this company. If you live on the western half of the United States, it's pretty local. It's in Arizona. If you don't, then it's still a better option than some of these soils that who knows where they're made with what they're made. This is made with post-consumer and post-restaurant food waste. It's composted and bagged in Arizona. So, pretty awesome. I've got my cedar 2x6s, the full length ones, the 8-footers, the 4-footers, my 4x4 posts for the corners, and I even got a redwood 2x4 at 70% off for this piece of wood. This set of 4. I had them cut it into 2-foot lengths. They didn't charge me any extra for it. It's a little curved, but it's not bad. The dog area is still over here. We had a bit of a windstorm, so everything fell down. I haven't been able to come out and pick it up yet, but alright, so I'm going to get to putting it together. I'll show you step by step what I do, and that way you can see how I get everything put together. If you were hoping that I would be doing something fancy to make this work, unfortunately you will be sadly mistaken. I'm pretty simple, so the things I do are pretty simple. I'm just going to put a couple screws here, probably 3, and a couple screws here and this side when I put the side on. And I'll do the same thing over there. I'm not even using a square because the lumber is square, and if the lumber matches here, then we know it's square. If it matches here, then we know it's square. See? Real easy. 3 screws, and then a 6-inch piece of wood squared up with my 4x4. And the screws I'm using are kind of big. Let me show you them. Here's how my dad always showed me how to check screws. Take your screw and hold it down like this, so you can see it up against the wood. And if you think you've got enough bite into that wood behind, then you've got a good and long screw. If you don't think you've got enough bite, buy a longer screw. Now, I know this is 2 inches because it's rough cut, so it's definitely 2 inches. I know this is 4 inches. These screws are, pardon me while I reach for the screws, 3.5 inches. So, a 3.5-inch screw will go through the 2x4. See? Go through the 2x4 I'm going 1.5 inches into the 4x4. If the sun would cooperate with me, you might be able to see it. But 1.5 inches into a 4x4 is more than enough to hold the side of a garden bed, in my opinion. Now let's get to getting the rest of it put together. No matter how good a screw you buy, you're always going to have this problem. The screw stripped out before it got all the way in there. Most people will try to yank the screw and damage the wood and make a holy mess. I got a better solution. Okay, so this is a pain. You can only see half my face, but that's alright. This is something that's always hard to deal with. Your drill is designed to hold on to things. So you know how I fix this? I use the chuck that holds the bits, and I clamp it down around the screw. And then we go to town. Let's do it. To quote my dad, this, good enough for government work. If you ask me, good enough for me too. Okay, so we got one on. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And I'm going to tell you the secret about making your raised beds look beautiful. Here we go. We got one 8-footer connected. Now, I said I was going to tell you the secret of making your raised beds look beautiful. It's pretty simple. This is a pretty looking board, isn't it? Now watch this. The back side of this is ugly as sin. Pick the pretty side. That's all you got to do. You pick the pretty side, you screw it down nice, and you got a pretty raised bed. I'm going to go get the rest of the sides put together. I'm going to put 2 deep on this, and I'll get right back with you when I'm doing the ends. So, I got the sides in. I found it was easier to stand the bed up like this, screw in one board on both sides, and then flip it up like this as you see it now, standing up on its end. Screw in the other board. Now I'm realizing it's not exactly level, but it's fine. It's supposed to look rustic. I also made an error here, and I screwed it in too far, and instead of leaving it alone like a smart person, I backed it up, and I chipped up some wood. So that was dumb. Don't do that. If you do that, have one of these handy so you can saw it off instead of shredding it down the whole length of the board. Alright, I'm going to get to finishing this bed and you can see what it looks like when I get it all done. Okay, so getting the bottom, or what will be the top, rung on is the hardest part. For this next piece, just take the board, see, drop it on, square it up, looks pretty good, and screw it in just like you did that one. You do that, and you will have a 12-inch deep, 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed that, if you ask me, looks pretty dang awesome. Okay, everybody, so I got the 2 beds built. This is what they look like. They're not in the ground yet. They're going to be going in the ground shortly. I left a walkway between the composter and the beds, and I left a walkway between the beds themselves. I'm going to drop these in the ground and fill them up with part native soil and part compost mix, and I will get back to you when I have one of them down so you can see how it went in. Alright, I've got one in the ground. This one is buried, the corner post anyway, I buried a foot down, and it's empty. But I've got that compost mix that I'm going to throw into it, and I'm going to add some of the native soils, like this, into it and mix it up. The first thing I have to do is I have to get my rosin paper, because I don't want weeds coming through my garden. So I'm going to bury her off the bottom. Be right back. There's a couple of layers of rosin paper. It's the same stuff you'd use under hardwood floors. Great stuff. Really like it. Super versatile. And a roll of dang cheap. So, definitely worth your money. I'm going to go get my soil, and we'll start loading the compost in here. Okay, so 7 bags of Eco Scraps, 1 cubic foot bag of compost mix. So 7 cubic feet. Gives me about, I want to say, what, 2-3 inches in the bottom. Nowhere near enough. I need 6 inches in order to grow anything decent. So I'm going to take my garden fork and break up the soil where the path is going to be and use that in here and in there when I bury that one, but in here. I'll get back with you when I'm ready to mix. Okay, it's finally filled up. That took me, I want to say, probably about an hour or so, maybe a little bit less. I dug up that square. It's about a foot deep. I put it in here and I filled it up. The dirt is clumpy as heck, but I know that I'm going to be covering this in mulch, and hopefully the constant moisture will soften all these clumps. I've got to mark off my square foot because although I'm not using the entire process, I am going to be using the planting scheme of the square foot method and the soil treatment of the Back to Eden garden. And I'm going to be using the only mulch that I have right now, which is a color tinted mulch, but it'll be okay. It'll be fine. And then I've got to bury that bed and fill it up, but I don't know if I'll be able to get to it today. But let me go ahead and mark out my square feet, and that way I know how to plant, and then I'll put the mulch down. And I'll be back when I've got the square foot marking out. Okay, so I've started to mark off the square foot grid so that I know how to plant what where. And after I get the, well, at this angle it's horizontals. After I get the horizontals in, I'm going to plant and then go get the mulch. And then I'm going to call it a day because this one bed is taking a long time.